Hitbox! KO! Hello everyone. Today we have another very special guest on this episode of Hitbox. Joining me is Anthony.
I've completely forgotten about that since the last podcast. Was that 3-4 years ago? No, 3 years ago.
No, it wasn't 3 years ago. It was like 2. It was less than 2 years ago.
Yeah, it was 2 years.
It does feel like a long time ago though. I feel like this year has been at least 3 years.
Yeah, so the obviously I follow your content as much as I can. I really enjoyed your lockdown stream of Half-Life Alex.
Oh yeah.
Remember that? I love that because I do not have the money, the time, or the setup for. So I lived through you, and I thought it was brilliant.
Oh, I mean, I definitely don't have the setup. Playing VR games in my room, I barely play on it at the moment because it's to say suboptimal is putting it lightly. I basically can't move anywhere, and the number of times I've smashed a controller into a wall is quite disturbing. And obviously the wall is one thing, but the kind of expensive controllers I don't really want to break.
No, I can imagine. No, it's to replace. Yeah.
So tell us a little bit about yourself. Like give us a little, what sort of gamer are you?
Oh, I was thinking about this when you gave me the prep to do this, and I think I'm probably a very sort of, I suppose you say, jack of all trades gamer, even if that's even a phrase you could use. I think I'm very broad stroke across lots of different genres, but I think everybody is to a certain extent nowadays anyway. I'm number one thing is I'm a very bad gamer. Very, very bad. Not in the sense of like competitive multiplayer games, but also in the sense that, unlike you, Jamie, I am terrible at finishing games.
Oh,
I'm so bad at finishing games.
Oh no, I'm not amazing. I've got quite a long list at the moment of unfinished games. Maybe I used to be like that.
Yeah, I think for me, where my sort of gaming started from is I was a very, as a child I loved sort of like fantasy, sort of dragons and sort of Lord of the Rings, all that sort of thing. I read lots of books, like fantasy books, and so that started me off on video games like that. And then, I think we were our sort of teenage years, and I know this because I played them with you. Where when you went around someone's house, you would play whatever the Call of Duty was at the time, split screen, and so then the sort of FPS sort of thing. That's how I was introduced to that. The real sort of proper FPS sort of games. And then now I moved on to PC gaming, maybe in my mid-teens, and I never looked back really.
You make me laugh because out of everyone who I've got on Steam, you're the one who makes me laugh every time I see you pop up playing a game, because it's always a bloody different game, and it's always something that I know you've never played before. Like it's like I've never seen him play this before. And I'd say probably like 50% of the time I've never heard of the game you're playing. Here he goes again. And I look at it, it's like early access, released yesterday.
I'm a sucker. I definitely had that era of being an early access sucker when I got into PC gaming, and it was terrible. And I know our friend, one of our close friends, would always ridicule me for it, because he'd say, "Why are you doing this?" And I'd give him all the hype and say, "Well, it's going to be like this. It's going to have this feature, and it's going to change the gaming world." And then in the end, it never happens. And there's a couple of games on here on my list that happened. That happened too. I think that was a really interesting sort of stage of my sort of gaming career as well. Was when I lost hope. because I don't have home anymore. I think it's really sad. But
yeah,
there was a definite stage, and I remember you were very influential in this when we were at school together, where E3, we'd get excited for E3. I know you still do, because you're more of an optimist than I am. But that was that stage, the mid-teenage to the stage, where I remember being hyped for games all the time. Like, there's always a game to be hyped for, and I don't remember being negative about it. I don't remember ever being negative. Whereas now, I just can't see a game and think, wow, they're probably going to screw that up, aren't they? But,
I don't. You're completely right. To be honest, I feel like for me, Cyberpunk has been the outlier. That game I'm genuinely hyped for. But yeah, there's not many games that I get hyped for these days compared to what I used to be.
Yeah, it's a strange thing. I mean, it probably is just an age thing. I think it probably is a factor anyway. But no, I don't know. I mean, I've really taken a roundabout attitude to your first question there. So in terms of the type of gamer I am, really not sure. Really not sure. I think it's changed a lot, and I think maybe it's just my own personal bias, but I think gaming's changed such a huge amount over our teenage lives, the last 10, 15 years or so. I mean, it always changes, of course, but I just feel like there's been so much change from when I went to secondary school, for example, to now. So yeah, I don't know. I mean, it's an interesting industry, and the products it puts out. I mean, you look at my Steam library, and the amount of hours I put on certain games is ridiculous. I mean, that's it's hardly a revelation of the century, but it's not just the. I remember going from Xbox, where I'd save up for like a £30-40 game, and that would be what I played after school for however long, and then there was that stage of sort of, I don't know how many years ago now, but where you just absorb content from Steam and you just buy and you build and build and build. I think everybody's like that, and that was a massive change. I think for me, when I got into Steam was the biggest change, of gaming I've ever had, really. For the better, I think. Better. And so now I'm at a very confused stage where I don't really know what sort of games I like anymore.
I have to say that with Steam, it's a bit of a double-edged sword, because I find, when you have games that are dirt cheap, because I've got Games Pass as well at the moment, and so you got this catalogue of games that you just can download, for free, and I kind of find myself hopping between loads of different games and not really getting into it too much. Whereas on my Switch, I will buy a game usually if I'm interested in it when it comes out for full price, and I will certainly play that game right to the end. And I don't know, it's weird, isn't it? Like, it's not because that game's necessarily better. It's just because it's like a one-off experience rather than, here's these thousands of games that I've got. Yeah. I mean, we've all been there, just scrolling through. I mean, even for this top 5 games list, when I was looking at them, I barely even looked at my Steam library, because there were a few in there, but they immediately came to me when I thought of them anyway. So looking through the Steam library, I mean, there's nothing that much substance. There's great memories there, but no, it's a hard one. It's a hard one, and I think it'll be interesting to see if Steam, the next 10 years, if Steam is still around, because I'm sure it will be, but 10 years ago it wasn't as big, certainly, and I don't think anybody could have quite predicted it. Maybe 10 years ago they would have done, but I don't know. I feel like Steam will be around, but obviously what we're seeing now, which is fairly, it's been around. We've had like multiple storefronts on PC for a long time. But it's mainly been kind of Steam as everything, and then if you want EA games, it's Origin. But now there's actually quite a few competitors, like loads actually, and which I don't like. It drives me insane. But I don't think Steam's going to go in 10 years, but it's definitely going to be a bit of a weird landscape, and it'll be interesting to see how many big games you have to download its own launcher for.
Yeah.
Like Red Dead 2, I had to download the Rockstar launcher. Like,
Oh no, I know.
oh.
It's such a pain, isn't it? I mean, Rockstar are an entity in their own, aren't they, completely? But you talk for hours about Rockstar, really. But yeah, and it's just endless with them. But no, I don't know. I mean, we've always talked about how when will VR properly start, and when will it actually take off? Because I think probably 5 years ago, if you'd asked me, whenever VR was being talked about, first came out, whenever it was sort of being talked about initially, I think I imagined myself now to probably having one. I definitely would have thought, I'll definitely have one. I'll definitely have one by now. But I don't, and I don't see myself having one in the very near future. In
my opinion, VR as it is right now, it's never going to be mainstream. You do need space. You really do need space. It needs to be set up, and if you've got the space, even then, you then have to be bothered to actually stand up and wave your arms around for a bit. I did that Half-Life stream. That was probably the longest. I played that for like 2.5 hours, and I honestly, I was a bit of a mess at the end of that, because you've got my face was so hot because I had the screen on my face, and I was kind of my legs hurt a bit, and it's not something that, I don't know, for me, if I want to play games, especially after a day of work, usually I don't really want to be then standing up and running around again. So I just can't help but feel that it's only going to become mainstream when they figure out a way of having the VR experience in a seated. I guess seated really. It's a bit difficult.
It is difficult, isn't it? It is difficult. I mean, maybe it just needs. I mean, obviously Valve are probably the best innovators in the space, I imagine, at the moment. I guess you could call them the biggest innovators.
They're like Willy Wonka. They've got some like really crazy stuff brewing behind the scenes that they just haven't talked about. They're a weird company, very weird company.
Yeah, it'd be so interesting to see what they do. I mean, it always is. I mean, like I said, Valve is so weird and mysterious. Maybe I think they rely on that slight mystery of what on earth they're going to do next to actually continue. Because I don't think they're publicly. They're not. I don't think they're a public company.
No, they're not. No,
it's really interesting to me. When I found that out, I thought that's probably the most interesting thing about the gaming industry. That they're not. So I don't know. I mean, that gives me a little bit of hope. I mean, it's easy to be very pessimistic at the moment, I think, because I mean, you just look at the corporatism really, and the microtransactions, and just the endless money grabbing that basically is what gaming is now. Really.
Honestly, I think that's on the verge of it's starting to decline. As in, we're at a peak right now. I think it's really bad right now, and I think it will be a little bit bad for a little bit longer. But I think people just don't. The traditional AAA money grabbing games are not reviewing well. They're not really liked by people. You look at most of the stuff that Activision and EA have brought out. I mean, Call of Duty is doing pretty well, but like people kind of hate, like really hate microtransactions more than I feel like they used to anyway.
Definitely.
So.
Definitely. Yeah, I mean, it's a bit like with the movie industry as well, isn't it? That there's so many reboots or remakes of old things.
Man, yeah, I know. Remakes and remasters and all that is a bit of a. It's a bit of an ongoing saga with me and Jack on this channel, because we're always moaning about remasters and remakes, and also crucially, what makes a remake and what makes a remaster, like the fact that they seem to be interchangeable depending on which company.
Absolutely. Yeah, definitely. I think I mean, it's just nice when you do find companies that really put out good games and just enjoy it, and they haven't been taken over by I mean, obviously every business is a business and needs to make money, but you just want to find people that, because ultimately it's a craft, isn't it? Really, you are putting a lot of time and you're crafting this really beautiful world or mechanic or whatever you're doing. So you want to find those companies and just support them as best you can. I mean, that's what I would like to try to do, really.
I just feel like CD Projekt Red, they want to make money by making you want to buy good products, which is how it should be, not kind of tricking you into spending money and kind of making you basically, well, literally gambling in some cases. Yeah. But I want to move on to talking about your childhood games, right? So I want to, if you can, kind of roughly 5 or so, like staple childhood games that I want you to talk about.
Yeah. Do you want them in a 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, or
you don't have to do it in any particular order. Cool. So I'm gonna be asking you what your overall, like, ignore, not just childhood, but your whole life, your favorite games. But for now, I just want you to like kind of talk to me about, some standout games from the past.
This is going to be like a therapy session. Honestly, it's going to be fantastic, because you don't often get to do this really hugely often. Well, I'm probably going to have to start with Pokemon.
I knew you were going to say Pokemon Emerald, right? Or something. Yeah, well, the third
Ruby
gen.
Emerald.
Yeah.
Emerald,
I knew you were going to say that.
Yeah, I mean, again, that really just captured my sort of childhood imagination more than any other game, I think, at the time. And I still remember, because it was like my older cousin had a Game Boy Color, I think, and I thought it was the coolest thing in the world. And then obviously you nagged my parents to try and get one, and I think it was I then got the Game Boy Advance. I probably got it somewhere here actually, but Game Boy Advance, and then at the time Ruby was out. And I remember getting the box, and then it was a covered little box, and
then the Ruby see-through cartridge as well.
Yeah. Oh my goodness, that was so satisfying. And plugging it in, pushing it in, and then your parents knocking on your door, saying goodnight, and then you're sort of hiding it, so they're not. You're playing it, and of course I don't think it had a backlight, or certainly one I had didn't have a backlight.
The original does not.
Yeah. So you're there, playing it, and I just remember it was the music and the little wheel at the bottom for the volume, I think, as well.
I forgot about the wheel. Oh man.
Yeah.
See, I never had. I had a Game Boy Color, and then I had a Game Boy Advance SP. So I had the backlight, but I had the issue with the backlight on the Game Boy Color, and I had a little attachment. It was a light that actually bends round, so I could play it, in car journeys or something, which is the cutest thing.
Oh, that's great. I think Pokemon was just so good because it was such a thought out world, really, and you could do a lot, and I think a lot of those games, I could be completely talking out my arse here, but I think a lot of those games of that era, of the Game Boy sort of era, perhaps didn't have as big a established universe. There was a core sort of game directive, and you did that sort of journey, and there were a few sort of side things, but not quite as much. Whereas Pokemon, I think there was just a lot to do.
Mm-hmm.
It was, I certainly, looking back at it, it's probably one of the first games definitely the first game I played that you didn't have to follow a linear sort of story path. I mean, there was the linear story path, of course, but you could just dick around for however long, leveling up your Pokemon if you wanted to, or and I'm going to be muddling the different Pokemons in here now. From what I remember, there are lots of different things you could do, and that really did it for me, I think. And such a variation of the Pokemon. Such a big variation of them. And it was just, there's so much progression, I think, because you had the progression of different, getting the best sort of Pokemon all the way up to Legendary, whatever it was. Rayquaza was for Emerald, wasn't it? And Groudon, I think, wasn't it?
Groudon for Ruby. Can you remember Sapphire? Can you remember Sapphire while you're here?
Oh no, because I never had Sapphire. So
fair enough. Kyogre.
Kyogre, God. Yeah. and there was, you got those, but then you leveled up, all of those Pokemon within that, and so you had so many hours of gameplay.
The best thing, like, well, I mean, obviously it's such a stupid thing to say, but like, the best thing about Pokemon is the Pokemon, and like, I think with Gen 3 specifically, they added quite a lot. I think they added. They may have added abilities and or genders or something. They added like quite a lot of stuff to the Pokemon, and it kind of established it as like, this is not just a Pokemon.
No,
this is not just an image. This is your Pokemon, and it has it's very unique, and it's yours, and it's not the same as, your friend may have caught the same creature, but it's not the same. It has different stats.
Exactly.
Which is so good. It really made you feel like you're going on a journey with your friends. You're like little pals, It
really did, didn't it? And you had to select them, the ones you wanted for the next gym, if you wanted them. Yeah. And you always had like your sort of your bum Pokemon that you just did nothing with, and then you sort of think, oh god, I've got to level up my electric type or something, and it's like 20 levels behind or something, and you spend hours grinding it. Oh my god. Yeah, it's so much fun.
I remember my stepbrother, for some reason, decided that he was just gonna. He stayed up. So it was a tradition, on a holiday, that me, my cousin, and my stepbrother would all play a Pokemon game. We'd all have the same generation, and it would be we'd all pick one of the 3 games in it, and we'd all play through it together and like battle each other like rivals, right? Right. And for some reason, even though we kind of, there was no like agreement to how much we could play it, but we knew that generally we'd probably be playing at the same sort of length of time, so we were generally at the same areas. My stepbrother decided on the very first night of the holiday, he just got addicted to it, didn't go to sleep, but he just grinded for ages, and he leveled up Bulbasaur, and he got a Venusaur. It was like level 40, and he hadn't even done a gym yet. And he just had this individual single Pokemon, which was just super OP. And I remember he got to a point in the game where obviously he was steamrolling it for ages, right?
Yeah.
But he got to a certain point where he wasn't able to steamroll it anymore with just that one Pokemon.
Yeah.
And he just realised, oh my god, I'm going to have to now grind like 5 Pokemon now, like, to actually complete this game.
That's mental, isn't it? God, I just remember sitting there, and when you need to grind a Pokemon, you'd just be. I remember how much my sort of thumbs hurt from pressing down like run or like move to whatever, running through the grass, and you'd just be spamming sort of A or something to get through like the text message, like something has appeared. You send out there, and you just have to keep rolling through it. But no, I had so much fun in that. And I remember there with the Game Boy Advance, you could link it to a GameCube game, and I'll come on to the GameCube in a second.
Yeah.
And it's called, oh god, what's it called? Pokemon Colosseum. And you had this long cable that plugged into the cartridge slot of the Game Boy Advance, and that was just the coolest thing. That for ages my Pokemon had been flat sort of LCD screen, I suppose, and now they were 3D, and the camera was moving around them, and it looked so. I was like, this is this incredible thing. It took my imagination to another level. It was just incredible, absolutely incredible. And I think I played that game through Ruby and Emerald through a couple of times. Just so much fun. But I suppose it's a good segue into the GameCube now, because I was a bit unusual in the sense I never had a PS1 or PS2.
Mm-hmm.
So the console I had was a GameCube, Nintendo GameCube, and I love that so much, that GameCube. And I think
GameCubes are kind of, I think in the UK, GameCubes and N64s were kind of quite uncommon. Like in the UK, most people had a PlayStation, I think.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah,
absolutely. Yeah, no, you're 100% right. They were nowhere near as powerful, obviously. But I remember that. I think we had Mario Kart Double Dash was fantastic. But the game that really got me was, unsurprisingly, not surprising for you at all, was Wind Waker.
Yeah.
Absolutely love Wind Waker. Again, it's that sort of, I very much like, I just love games where you got a bit of adventure and a bit of freedom. And Wind Waker was that, because you just sail to islands, and that was so cool for me. And it wasn't on rails. You didn't say, I'm going to go to this location and done. It was just, you can go. You can just go wherever you like, and there's things that pop up, and you battle little things, and the graphic style of it as well was fantastic of Wind Waker.
It's kind of timeless. Like, that game just looks great still.
Does look great still. Yeah, I mean, the resolution is obviously a lot lower, but it's really, really good game. And I still haven't got the emulator of the updated one yet. I'm still meaning to do that. That's probably the next game I play, actually, will be the emulator Wii U edition version of that, the remastered version.
Yeah.
So I can't wait to play that. There's so much fun with that game, and I don't think. Now, I mean, it kind of flies under the radar a little bit, I think, with the Zelda games, perhaps. But I think, I think that's where my desire, because I had played that game and it was sort of sailing, and you had to figure out where you were going, look at a map, and sail to the right location.
Very different to the other Zelda games in that regard.
Very different.
Yeah.
Yeah, very different. And I remember it was a long time until I played another game where I felt that I had the same level of a really good sailing game, like a really good on the sea sort of thing. And I think a lot of people, probably older than us, played sort of Sid Meier's Pirates, probably.
Mm-hmm.
That was quite, people like that game a lot, and I like that game a lot actually as well. But it was a long time until I had a game like that as well. And I think what I really liked about Wind Waker as well was just the random encounters as well, because there was a vendor that would go around to different islands.
Yeah.
And it was a completely nutty character. I mean, only the Japanese could come up with ridiculous characters like him. I mean, he kind of looked like a sex offender, really.
Remind me, is that Tingle? I know Tingle's the weirdest character. I don't know. I haven't actually played Wind Waker, shockingly, so I don't actually know. No.
Well, it's definitely worth playing if you can, but then that's the thing with childhood games. It's so easy to remember how good they were and none of the bad things. So there's always that debate of, do I go back and play them, or do I just leave them as those beautiful memories? I would
say most games that I've returned to have been as good as I remember them. I would say the only thing that you forget about is the resolution. Yeah, you always forget. Oh, this is actually really blurry. You just don't know it. You don't know it at the time.
Yeah, definitely. I suppose. I mean, I could talk endlessly with Wind Waker, but I think with the next one, I think probably that really. I mean, there were loads of games, but the next one that really I love that sort of sense of adventure and big open world, and just loved it, was Oblivion, the Elder Scrolls Oblivion.
Oh, I love Oblivion so much.
I know. I think that was one of the first games I had on my Xbox 360, I think, actually. And just the music and the atmosphere, and just came at just the right time, I think, at my age as well. It's just you just need to hear the music as well, don't you? And you're like, I'm there.
It's in my head right now. Oh, it's so good. Sorry, I'll let you talk about it. But the one thing that when I think of Oblivion, the first thing that comes to my head is when you go out the sewer.
Yeah.
You walk out the sewer, and they don't really. Obviously, you've got quest markers and stuff, but it's kind of. Yeah, you can do what you want, and you just look around like, really? And you look on the map, like, whoa!
It was huge, wasn't it? It was mental. Because I think I don't know about you, but I was certainly too young for Morrowind, so this was the Elder Scrolls game of my childhood. Yeah, I didn't play Morrowind, so and this is one that I grew up with, and yeah, you're right. It's just that living, breathing world, which is such a. I mean, the sort of corporate gaming industry has tried to do that now. The living, breathing world that we've created, and it's not really. Whereas I think maybe it's just, it it worked for how old I was then, but it really did. You just wander around and then
No, Oblivion definitely was living and breathing. They really did. The NPCs had lives that they actually did. Like, you could follow an NPC around, and they would go to work, come back home, put their kids to bed. Like, obviously, you know, that would be it. But they have actually got routines, and they you know, there's certain characters that you can pickpocket and be like, why do they have a key to this person's house? And it's because they're having an affair or something. And they actually had that in there. That's so cool.
So good. And I think because I always try and remember the context of the games around the ones that were really good for me. And I think, you know, looking back to, I can't remember any examples, but certainly on the Xbox 360, I'm sure the PS2 and PS3, you had those games where, you know, really good action games, or they built really good worlds, but, you know, it was a street that you went down, and there were walls along there, and you couldn't go along. You might come back to it later in the game when it's like ruined because the boss is back, and the town is now like a mangled version of itself. But, you know, with Oblivion, like you said, and then you'd walk into a city and you think, this is a great city, and you walk around and, like I said, all the people have real lives. You might buy things, and you come across like certain sort of surface level sort of guilds and people, and then suddenly what was it, the Assassin's Guild, what was it called, the Dark Brotherhood, what it's called, Dark Brotherhood. And so suddenly you discover the Dark Brotherhood, and you think, this is the best thing that anyone's ever written in the world, because the whole wide sort of civilization in that world is
the Dark Brotherhood. On balance, that's probably the best quest line of, like, you know, I'd have to think about it, but that's definitely up there as like the best quest line of any game. That is so good.
So much fun. So much fun. It really did it for me, that. And I mean, Skyrim was good, but I probably, there's a special place in my heart for Oblivion, certainly. And I still remember you could get, this is such a random thing, you could get like a fire spell, just a little firebolt. Remember the Blades, like, castle? I think the Blades were like the Emperor's sort of, they had like katanas and sort of...
No.
Really cool.
The Blades castle in Oblivion.
In Oblivion, yeah. They were the guys that guarded the Emperor, from what I remember.
Oh, I can't remember. Can't remember.
But they had such cool weapons and armor.
Yeah.
And I mean, I'm just a hoarder really when it comes to games in terms of the items in there. I just love it. So, anybody that's ever played a multiplayer game with me will get annoyed at me that I use a terrible weapon just because I think it's cool. It's awful in every game I play. So I remember you could I remember looking up on the internet on probably like GameSpot's cheap sort of guide or something like that. I don't remember now. You'd cast a fireball at the castle because it was locked off. You couldn't get in there until like later on, and you could just like completely like sort of kite one of the guards and like sort of run away, like try and kill him a bit, run away, kill him a bit. If you died, you just reloaded your save, obviously. And at the end of the day, you've got this excellent armor.
That just
felt so cool. He had this amazing sword, and I was like, I am the best person who's ever played video games. So
the fireballs in Oblivion are really funny because they're like projectiles. They're just orbs that go on forever. Like, you can fire them, and you can see them going for like a minute. Like, you can just watch it go into the distance.
I'm glad you explained that, because I didn't explain that bit. Yeah, it's so funny. You just like boom.
It's so good.
I mean, it's so many memes from that game as well, just because it's, you know, like the face, like the zooming in on the faces.
So good. The big problem with Oblivion, which I replayed it a few years ago now, but I replayed it on PC, and that game has one of the worst leveling up systems of any game. I cannot stand the leveling up system. That is by far the worst thing about that game, and the problem is that there's so many bugs attached to it. So you have a skill that levels up. I think it was athletics for jumping. For running, and then acrobatics for jumping, right? But but because of the way the leveling system works, you're kind of discouraged from running and jumping, because if you run and jump too much without fighting enough things, then all the enemies get really powerful because they scale to your level, but you might have barely any sword skills, so you have to fight people that are really strong, but only because you've been jumping a lot. And it's surprisingly easy to do that as well. Like, if you do all the Dark Brotherhood missions first, you're really sneaky, but as soon as you're forced to do a big combat mission, you can't do it. Which is such an issue.
I've forgotten about that. So I do remember now, because when they introduced Skyrim, if I'm remembering correctly, there was a different way of leveling the world around you or something, wasn't there? I'm not sure they even did level around you or something, did they?
So Skyrim, I don't know how they did it, because in Skyrim things did level up around you, but it wasn't done in a really dumb way. Like, I don't know. I just remember Skyrim, I would say, is one of the best leveling up systems that I remember, just because if you do lots of lockpicking, you get better at it, and it's surprising by how many games don't do that. Like I've got all this XP from killing people with a sword, therefore I want to dump it all in my sneak. So many games do that, and it doesn't make any sense to me.
No, it's true, isn't it? I think there is. No, I mean, that's the nice thing about those sort of open world games, is that I think there's lots of games where you have you can choose the way you want your character to be, whether it be the classic sort of tropes of video games, where it's sneaky, bash things in with a big sword, or archery or whatever, and you do that, but you've got to go through the same sort of game sort of mechanics or storyline or enemies or whatever. Whereas I think that was what's nice about Oblivion and Skyrim and the Elder Scrolls in general, I suppose, was that they had these different quest lines where they were more focused to that, and so you weren't just doing, I'm an archer, but I'm doing the same thing as if I was a different type of character, but just from a slight distance. Like you said, the Thieves Guild or the Fighters Guild or the Dark Brotherhood, you actually explored what it meant to be that skill type a bit more.
Exactly.
And that was the thing. That was the best thing about it. I mean, that's probably, as you said, as we started with, that was probably the best thing that came from it, was that there's just different avenues that you could go down. And still, and the same with Fallout to a certain extent, was that you go into a little cave or shelter or whatever, and then you just stumble across a conspiracy or a particular quest line, and now you're in it. And that was just the best thing.
What you were just saying about killing that swordsman and getting the really good item. In Fallout 3, there's these really powerful, the power gloves, right? Power fists, or whatever they're called. Yeah. And to get them, you have to go into a really difficult, infested factory, which is not. And for the level I was at, it was not appropriate. But I obviously I googled where it was and stuff. I snuck in there and got out without being seen, and so my entire build was based around unarmed the whole time, and so these fists counted as unarmed, and it was so good because the rest of the game I was going around and I didn't feel overpowered, because I feel like being unarmed hinders you anyway. And I just remember feeling like having the coolest weapon ever. Bethesda back in the day.
Yeah, I think it's a real balance between. One thing I don't like about video games, I had this with The Witcher 3 actually, was that I didn't like how quickly you moved on from weapons and armor and swords, because you find this really cool thing, and all of a sudden, this is 110 damage or whatever, and now I found one with 113, so of course I'm going to ditch the 110. I kind of like having the holding on to them a little bit more, but I don't know. I think that's why I never really got into something like World of Warcraft, because you couldn't really. Maybe I was very young when I played it, but you couldn't do as much exploration. You're in this zone, and when you level up, you grind, and then you move on to the next zone.
Yeah.
And there's nothing in that for me really. So I can see the appeal of it, but it wasn't for me then.
Tell me. Oh, sorry. Go on.
No, you go.
I don't know. I was about to say, let's move on to your next game. So finish.
Well.
Oh, were you actually? Okay, go on then.
I know, we're just so in sync. So I'll do. See, I was going to talk about Halo 3 as the campaign, but I feel that's so talked about anyway that we'll just say Halo 3 campaign is great. Let's move on.
Which Halo game is Halo Reach?
Halo Reach is the one with what's called Noble Team, and they're like a.
Wait, as in number wise, like.
Oh, that's a good point. I can't remember now. So you had, I think Halo CE, Combat Evolved 2, 3, ODST, and then I think you had Reach. So it probably is 5. I think I could be wrong. I'm probably missing one, but. No,
I was just looking at because Niall, who was on the last episode, one of his favourite games was Halo Reach, and I wasn't sure if. On sec, I've made a boo boo here. Oh, sorry, viewers at home. For some reason, you are currently watching me Google Halo 3. How did that happen? All right, it's back now. I don't know why that happened. Anyway, sorry.
I debated between. There's a funny story behind this actually, because I debated between doing Halo 3 and Halo Reach, and my parents didn't want me having like 16 games when I was like 13.
Yeah.
So Halo Reach was the first game I got that was like that I didn't go to my friend's house and just play. That was slightly higher age limit, I suppose. So there is a special place in my heart for Halo Reach, and I mean, I'm sure your Niall, your last guest, talked about it. I felt the campaign with Reach was just so good. It was just really well written, and they had really cool characters, and they all died. So it was really, like emotional because they had this awesome
Spoilers!
team that you were part of. I know it was.
You can't spoil a game that old. I'm only joking.
No, you can't spoil a game that old. Just put spoiler alert just before then.
I'm not doing that.
You'll be heavily editing the video anyway, won't you? I'm sure. But no, I think I'll go for Halo 3 since your last guest did Reach. And Halo 3 just had an awesome campaign, just a split-screen campaign that was just really, really cool. And it was, the whole world was ending. There was alien ships coming down, blowing everything up.
Oh, cool.
And then all of a sudden, you've got like another threat, the flood come in, and just you've got to deal with that. So it's just really cool levels of sort of just world ending. It's just epic, really epic gameplay basically. And I still remember. What was the scene? I can't remember which level it was in, but it's like a massive desert sort of assault on a planet, and you're suddenly, and it's the level you get tanks, the Scorpion tanks, and you look up and there's this massive like frigate sort of ship just hovering above you, and you're just like, oh my god, this is awesome. You just felt like you're in the middle of a war at that age, like a futuristic sci-fi war, and it was just awesome.
So I've never played a Halo game, and we had an opposite console growth because you had what? Did you have an N64?
No, I only had the GameCube. Okay.
So you had a GameCube and then an Xbox 360. I had PS2 and PS3. So I haven't actually played any Halo game at all.
Well, I mean, it's like with you with the so the PlayStation side. I've hardly played any of the PlayStation games.
Yeah.
Which is really a really interesting thing, isn't it? Really, it's a really divergent path in a way. But
it sucks because there's both of those consoles had amazing exclusives.
So good.
Yeah.
So good. I do. It was always a slight, jokey competitiveness about which console. We're like, oh, PlayStation sucks. At school. But this one's going to be more powerful and.
Yeah, it was fine. Yeah. Until it was like, PlayStation 3 is more powerful, and then you play Skyrim on PlayStation 3, and then you're like, oh, it's really, really good, and then a few months pass, and it gets really bad on the PS3 version. It had a crippling bug.
Really?
That got worse the more you played it. And I remember that. And I can't even argue this anymore. It's like, this is really bad. Anyway.
And then also, with Skyrim, they had massive delays on the PlayStation side of the DLC, didn't they? That it was like over a year or something, wasn't it?
It actually wasn't, funnily enough. It might have felt like a year. I think it was just a month.
Was it?
But it definitely felt longer.
I would have put money on that it was a year.
I never even played those, funnily enough, which is bizarre.
It's strange, isn't it? It was the Dawnguard DLC, I think, wasn't it?
It was Dawnguard, and there was another one afterwards. I haven't played either.
I only played the Dawnguard. I don't know what the other one was. But, yeah.
But the only reason why I didn't play those is because I was a child and I couldn't afford it. That was it.
Yeah, exactly. I don't even know how I made the decision to go for... Actually, I do know. It was because of Halo. That's why I bought an Xbox 360. I asked for an Xbox 360 for Christmas. But yeah, I think quick special mention to Iron Daggers in Skyrim for leveling me up my blacksmithing so much.
I did the same thing. It's just...
that was hilarious.
So dumb.
Just like craft, and sell them all.
But then also, even though you were totally just abusing the game and it wasn't in any way skillful, I remember feeling like a badass for anyway. I remember feeling like, not that I've broken the game, but like, no, I'm really good. I'm a really good blacksmith.
Yeah. Level 70 blacksmith. So funny, isn't it?
Because nowadays, when I play games, I really try hard to not do any exploit in any way. Like, I want to play it the way it's meant to be played. Whereas when I was younger, exploiting the game, just I didn't care. Like, as in, it didn't make the game feel worse. It felt just fun. But I don't know why.
Like cheat codes, isn't it? I just remember going around a friend's house and playing. I think it was later on, but any sort of game where you just plug in a cheat code and you just
GTA.
GTA.
Just,
absolutely.
Yeah.
So much fun. Yeah. Oh, I'm just remembering all these games now. Just randomly, Simpsons Hit and Run. Like, what a random gem of a game. Like, that was just.
It was really fun.
It was really fun. Like, really well thought out as a game, I thought. But anyway.
Considering you're only in a car as well, it's yeah.
No, I love that. I love that. I'll move on to the next one because it's a mod really, but it's DayZ. DayZ Dead. And I just remember it was one of the first games I played on PC. And again, you said I remember watching before I got a PC. I watched loads of people playing videos on it, and it just looked so much fun. It just, again, open world, really unscripted gameplay, and anything can happen was the sort of the thing I thought. In reality, it meant just running around a field for about 4 hours, looking for a can of beans before dying. But in my head, I thought it was pretty cool, and I was really young when I played it, and I just remember that on the sort of the server chat, because you'd have to find a server, and you'd always have like your favourite servers. I remember how janky of a system it was. This was Arma 2, by the way. So the game was on Arma 2, or the one I played anyway was on Arma 2, before the standalone. So not the standalone game, but Arma 2. And I just remember these people like chatting on the sort of server-wide chat, and then having much more of a clue about how to play the game. I had absolutely no idea how to play the game, really. And you're just trying to find weapons and reloading, because if you found like a hatchet, you had to like reload the hatchet before you could use it. And if you went on ladders, you're basically going to die. It was so janky. If doors opened, if they opened wrong, you'd break a limb, and the chance of finding morphine were really low when you had a broken leg. And the screen was grey, so if you lost a lot of blood, the screen went grey. So for about 3 hours, you'd have like a grey screen.
That's so. I wish we obviously I did get a PC in the end, and we had a lot of fun playing games together. But I definitely wish I had a PC earlier, because I feel like there's some, especially stuff like DayZ, that obviously was a whole. You're never going to get back. I can't just play that the Arma 2 mod now. It wouldn't be the same.
No, it wouldn't be the same.
That was something that you had to play when it was big at the time. Yeah.
I mean, it says.
I love stuff like that though. I love it when games you have like that pocket of time where you just
yeah. I mean, it's an amazing one because looking back on it, that's why I included DayZ. Really, was that because it was so influential for the next sort of what the games we're playing now. So PUBG came from like an Arma 2 and the survival game. I mean, remember that survival game era where every game had zombies, and every game had crafting and sort of survival, and it was just endless. I think a lot of that came from DayZ, unless I'm remembering it incorrectly. But the hours spent, and I remember, I was such a crap gamer at that age because I had no idea what was going on in most games, let alone like a multiplayer mod where every server was different, and there might be different rules on a different server, or
that terrifies me now, let alone as a kid. Like,
I think they were like sort of 30-year-olds playing the game who had so much better clue of how to do it. I remember spending so long finding a gun. There's one particular server, and I remember finding a gun. I think, oh yeah, it's great, and I didn't use the gun. I never used it because you just died. And I didn't know how to use it very well, and I didn't know how to shoot the gun very well. I didn't know how to aim as very well because I never shot. All the other multiplayer games, you can just die, reload, and practice and practice and practice. In DayZ, I never did because I found a gun once. I didn't even know what sort of caliber it was. Didn't know how to write ammunition necessarily, and also Arma 2 just has such a weird control scheme. It's a bizarre control scheme.
Oh, it's a very hardcore game, isn't it? I mean, I know Arma 3 is like
I don't know why. Sometimes you think, why do people play that? But I think it just deliberately slows everything down so it feels more realistic, I suppose.
Exactly.
I remember one sort of from DayZ. I think I learned how to read maps really well.
That's brilliant. That's really funny.
You'd spawn in, and you wouldn't know where you were, and you'd have to figure out where you were on this map. There was no icon saying where you were, and you had this massive map that you've got to figure out. And you think, okay, I'm on the coast. Are there pylons? And the map, because it's a military sim game, I suppose, the map relatively realistic. So you'd look for like contours of the land. Oh, that matches that contour, or power lines there, or
that is very cool.
There. So I just I remember being relatively competent in sort of map reading from that, and finding a direction in north, south, east, west. It's just weird.
It reminds me of when we played The Forest together.
Oh my god!
Which that's although it's not in my top 5 or anything. I think it was 3 days of playing that game. That's like one of my favourite gaming experiences ever. It was 100%. So good.
Yeah, I mean, if you can, you're absolutely right. I mean, I'd probably categorise it as one of my, probably my top gaming experience. Really. Weirdly, I wouldn't. Like, you're right. I didn't even think to include it in my list for that. I don't know why, but it was just. It's weird, isn't it? It obviously it's a great game, but that in particular was an experience. To clue in listeners, we basically played. There was 3 of us, and we played The Forest, and it was a 3-day. I think it was 3 days, where we were very free. We just finished our final exams at uni. Well, you hadn't, but 2 of us had. Yeah, I can't remember what I was doing at that point,
but I know 2 of us had just literally just finished our exams, and so it was a 3-day stint where we just played The Forest all day, and it was wonderful. I felt like I was living in that game.
I know. I loved it. It just gives me, and that I think that what was extra special about that was that I suppose we were, what was like 2021 then maybe? I'm not sure. Yeah, 21. Around that age. So, I think it's equally as impressive to have that gaming experience at that age. Because when you're younger,
exactly,
it's not easy to be impressed. So I just think
I remember being excited. I remember waking up in the morning, and I remember being like, "You guys," it was like 9 a.m. or something, and just being like, "You guys on?" and then actually getting replies to both of you, like, yes, do it right now. Like, yes.
That was so good. And because I look back at playing like PUBG, for example, and the hours I spent on that, and I loved that game at the time, but now I look back.
You played that so much.
So much. I look back on that now and I cringe a little bit because I'm like, God, that game. But
it was really fun though. I mean, PUBG was really fun. I mean,
it was a lot of fun.
Yeah.
It was a lot of fun. Yeah. No, it was a hell of a lot of fun. That's actually on my list for top 5 games, actually, because I thought I played it so much.
I feel like you have to, don't you?
I kind of feel I have to. I haven't put Rainbow Six Siege on there because while I've got a ridiculous number of hours on that, I despise that game now and I won't touch it because it makes me sick. It made me so angry. I remember at one point I had to stop and think, I've got to stop getting so angry with this game. You know, I just got to calm down. And you know.
I had that realization in high school with Call of Duty. And yeah, I never got into a game like that again. PUBG, I played a lot with my friends, but it wasn't like I wasn't into it. I clocked in 100 hours. It wasn't like I was I wasn't living and breathing it because I get too stressed out otherwise.
And it's just not. You come away, you want to relax, and you come in and you play, and you come out of it just really annoyed. You're really annoyed. And generally, you play if you played a game really well, you think, yeah, let's play another one, and you
should stop there. Yeah.
You're more likely to end on a bad game. Alt F4 and done. God, that game.
So I want to talk about your top 5, unless you have another childhood game that you're busting to talk about.
One more childhood game.
Oh, go for it.
Yeah. These lists, I'm sure you look back on and think, why didn't I include that? But this is such a random one.
It's only 5. It's very difficult.
Yeah, I think technically I've done 6 maybe, but whatever. This might be a special mention, but I don't think it's just such an obscure game. But it's called The Hobbit, and I don't know if I've told you about this, but it was a game that came out in 2003 or something like that. I'm trying to remember when I got it here. Yeah, 2003, and it's like an action sort of adventure game.
I'm just looking. I'm googling this. Go on.
Yeah, and so it came on a CD, and you'd install it on a CD on your PC, and you basically it was The Hobbit, as in the book, because it was before the film, sorry. And you installed it, and you played it, and you just played through The Hobbit, and I loved The Hobbit. Was one of my favourite childhood books. So this game was just so good, and
cool. Wow.
I've still got the disc, and I'm going to play it again at some point because again for me, this is probably the childhood game for me because like there were loads of gems, and you'd wander around the Shire at the start, and you collect some gems, and the noise and the music that game for me is where the sounds really I can almost makes me like sort of
cool.
Shiver thinking of the noises of and. You'd play through. There was such a good level where you'd play. If you don't know the story of the Hobbit, but there's a thing where Bilbo has to like pickpocket the trolls, these massive stone trolls, and you have to sneak around the trolls, and it's the most stressful level I've ever played when I was younger, because you'd have to sneak, and then you might be caught by the trolls or not. I remember spending so long on that. Was it
so it was like a level based?
Yes, it was. So you'd go round each level, and story. Yeah, so along the story you'd go to different areas, different levels. It wasn't open world, but it certainly felt open world at that age.
Of course.
But that was really interesting as well because even because it's The Hobbit, you're literally a hobbit. You're not you're not Gandalf. You're not Aragorn or anyone. You are a tiny little man, and you start off with like a walking stick that you can beat people with, but you then get Sting, the little dagger sword that Bilbo has. But even then, you're not even close to being able to fight the enemies that in a normal game would be. You have to sneak around people, like orcs. When there's an amazing level where you're going through like the orc catacombs, and it's awesome. but you just aren't a powerful character, and no matter how much you try, you can throw stones and things. You throw stones, and you can kill certain things. I mean, that makes it a game, so you have to fight things. But you are not a powerful character, and that's what I really like about that game, because it's not trying to shoehorn in. You are a demigod, and you've got demigod powers, and you can kill everything. You really are a little tiny thing caught up in this massive world, and you've got to sneak around. So.
Very cool. I know nothing about that until now. That's really interesting.
If you want to borrow the game for a let's play, then
I wouldn't be able to. I've never had a disc drive.
Oh, true.
But thanks.
No worries. I've got it on a floppy disk, if that helps.
Funny enough, I actually have one of those. No.
Dear. Right, I'll move on to top 5 games now.
I want you to start with your worst. With your worst top 5.
Worst top 5. Again, I'm really... Well, okay. I've got 6, but I can do the 6th one as a special mention.
So it's funny that you say that, actually.
Yeah.
Because the last guest we had on, he also had 6. And so at the moment... our game that's in 6th place has 0 points, so you can join the rank. It can join the ranks of the 0 pointers.
I was categorizing it as like a special mention, and I'll touch briefly on it. It was a game called Evolve, and you've heard me natter on about this game endlessly, probably.
It's a good shout. That's a cool pick, actually.
Yeah, I feel like it was such a, both for the game itself and for the type of game it was, I feel like it's such a shame it didn't succeed. And you and me have talked endlessly about why it failed. But essentially, it's an asymmetric multiplayer game where one person is a monster who levels up, and the other team are these sort of sci-fi sort of heroes that you've got who are hunting the monster.
It should have been so good.
So good. I mean, asymmetric multiplayer gaming it's just the coolest thing.
Yeah.
You'd have all these cool gadgets on one team, and you'd be hunting this monster, and you want to catch it at this early stage when it's small and not as powerful. And as it gets bigger, because you're in this map, and as the monster, you have to be really sneaky. Like, you have to be so sneaky, and it's a very high skill cap game, really, because you have to hide all around, and you've got to go to these spots, and they can track your footprints as well. So they can really find you very quickly, and they can then dome you. They put down like this big sort of force field dome to trap you and try and kill you. So cool. And I just remember that moment then when you get to stage, there's 3 stages as the monster, where you get more powerful and powerful, and you eat the wildlife around you, and you evolve. And in stage 3, you're just this monster that can just destroy anything, and you're just like batting down these tiny characters. And they're playing an FPS game, and that's just the coolest thing.
That game did not deserve to die. That was such a good concept. I'm fully expecting an imitator to come around at some point, honestly.
So I mean, you're absolutely right. I mean, that genre, I'd love to have a more fleshed out genre of asymmetric, where it's 5v1.
I love asymmetric games like that.
So good. And there's so much scope. I think Evolve, with a couple of its game mechanics, slightly penned itself in, and it had terrible marketing, and it did way too many like pre-order bonuses and ludicrous like legendary editions that cost like £100, and it's just ridiculous. But so that's that, and I'll special mention to that game, so cross fingers that we get another game like that.
But it wasn't just called Evolve though, was it? What was it? It was called
Evolve, Survival Evolved. But then not Survival Evolved, that's Ark.
Yeah, that's what I keep thinking. It's Ark Survival Evolved. It's not. Is it just called Evolve? It is just called Evolve. Yeah, I kept thinking of.
They then did a free-to-play one after that.
Stage 2.
That's it. Yeah, Stage 2. Yeah.
Oh man, see, this is interesting because this game highlighted to me. I just recently bought a laptop, and it had a really pants graphics card in. I didn't realize how bad the graphics card was until I played this game with you guys. I was like, well, I can't run it at all. Like it was like I had to put everything on the lowest settings at 720p, and I still couldn't play it. And I remember being really sad. It's like, oh yeah, time to play some games with you guys, and then just I guess I won't play this.
Oh dear. Yeah, I mean it was and it looks great. It was a really good looking game as well from what I remember. I think it was Unreal, it was the Unreal Engine, and it just looked really good for its age. Really good. So the next one is Battlegrounds, PUBG.
Nice.
And I again, I played a lot. I played far too. I dread to think about the hours I had in that game, but it was a time when I moved into my house at university with lots of other PC gamers, and we would play literally until the sun came up, and we're like, oh crap, it's light outside, oh god, but it was so good, so good.
I had the same experience when I had the perfect timing for that game. My whole house had PCs.
Yeah,
it's like brilliant.
I mean, there's that age-old saying, isn't there, really, for gaming, where any game is a good game if you can play it with someone. You can play any crap game if it's multiplayer or co-op with your friends, because it'll be good fun then. But PUBG, and because I sound like such a hipster now, but I played the Arma 3 Battlegrounds mod, or whatever it's called. It's PlayerUnknown Battlegrounds for Arma 3, and Arma 3 again, really janky and just awful controls, but the same thing, zone shrinking in, dropping out of the plane, getting guns, and it was just so much fun. And I remember I stopped playing after a while, the mod for Arma 3, and I remember I was on the subreddit for that for some reason, and I noticed that they said that they had PlayerUnknown, the guy, the creator of it, was working on a standalone, separate game, Battlegrounds. I thought
that's really interesting.
Yeah, I thought, and they showed like some assets, some cars and things, and I thought, that'd be cool. And just not knowing the scale that it would have blow up to, because it was a very niche, sort of game. Really.
Not just the scale of which it's PUBG specifically, but the genre that it then spawned from it. Whoa!
Amazing. Incredible. I mean, it's billions of dollars probably. Maybe not. Maybe it would be billions. I don't know.
I reckon at this point, the battle royale genre, for sure. There's so many battle royale games now.
If you count Fortnite, then definitely.
Yeah.
But, I think ultimately, I'm getting away a bit from PUBG here, but I think ultimately, currently, I think Warzone is a really well evolved version of PUBG. I think.
Yeah.
I think PUBG sort of, they were really innovative initially, but then when they released the second map, they were just doing the same old thing and not as well, and they just didn't innovate. They did not innovate. They did not keep up. And then other games came out, and I have no idea what the player count is now, but one time it was the highest on Steam, wasn't it? I think.
Yeah.
Or
for a long time.
Maybe not quite Dota 2. I can't remember now, but
no, PUBG was number one for a while. Yeah.
Yeah.
For me, what did PUBG for me was its pace. For the most part, it was a relatively slow-paced game, and I still, in my opinion, I prefer it over Call of Duty Warzone. I quite liked how there's a lot of sneaking around. There's a lot of, can you hear that car in the distance? Let's hide in this house and ambush them. Whereas in COD, maybe it's just because I've played too many of these games now and it's not special anymore.
Yeah.
But for COD, I found that it didn't have the same vibe, but that could just be because I've now played too many of them. I don't know.
Yeah, I think every game has its heyday when it's fresh, and there aren't because I remember I certainly came back to PUBG. I played it solidly for a few months, and I came back to it after a break from it, and then I realised how good everyone was and how nailed down the meta was. Yeah, it was absolutely nailed down, and you think,
nah.
It's not for me anymore. I don't want to get back into it. But yeah, it was a good game. I thoroughly enjoyed it. The next game I've got, I couldn't decide between two. I think I was going to say Gmod, but just because of the fun I had. But I sort of want to touch this because it's not as well known. But Lost Planet 2, which is such a random game.
Cool pick.
Yeah, for me, like Lost Planet 2, just because again it was that wacky sort of Japanese sort of game where you got to, you know, it was so different to the games we got growing up. It was like Xbox 360 sort of era, so different to the flavor and the feeling of all the other video games that we had at the time, and it wasn't perfect by any stretch, but yeah, there were really cool mechanics in it, just so different, and
really cool.
Like the mechs, it was the mechs of the game was so cool. I still think back to some like the big like mechs sort of that you could drive, and they were so cool.
Yeah.
You could get in them, and you could put massive guns on them. You fought. I mean, the scale of the monsters as well was the cool thing. That was the selling point of the game. You could get inside a monster.
Still awesome. Like today, really. Awesome.
Yeah. I don't think there's been a game that's done as much really as that. I think that game was very innovative as well.
Yes.
In that it did a lot, and the variation of the levels as well, where you went a lot. You did a lot of different levels, a lot of different scenery, everything from jungle to cities to snow to desert.
Yeah.
To space as well was pretty cool. And there's a classic level where you're on a train and the train's just driving in a straight line, and you've got this massive worm that's about the size.
I remember that. Yeah.
That you've got this massive rail gun that you fire at this massive worm. The worm's like as big as a city, or probably a small town. And you have to load the whole. It's like that big Nazi German railgun from World War II.
Yeah.
Ridiculous. And so you'd load these shells, and you have to pick up the shells and put it in, and turn the gun and fire it. And it's so cool. Such a good game.
Nice.
I never actually played it co-op. I only played it on my own, which was always annoying. Because I think it was meant to be a 4-player game, really. But I do want to play it with people at some point. I think it'd be really good fun. That was a fantastic game.
Nice. That's a cool pick. We're getting at the end, once you've done it, I'll read out the whole list. Really interesting picks on this list, honestly. Yeah.
I've got a couple of more sort of more obvious ones next. And the next one is Battlefield 3.
Cool.
I think, again, for me, very sort of biased in the sense that it fit in very well. It was, again, one of the first sort of 5 PC games that I played after getting a PC. And it just felt at the right time for me, and really good big open battles, but as well as really good like core FPS mechanics that just were really tight and really crisp. I mean, it had its issues, of course, but just it's that it's I think haven't really quite replicated the big scale battles as well as they have in Battlefield 3.
Yeah, I think it's weird, isn't it? I think Battlefield, that was the quintessential Battlefield for sure. Like it definitely. But Bad Company 2 was the one I played the most, and I remember being amazed by that. And then I feel like Battlefield 3 took all the good stuff from that and made it bigger. But it scaled back recently.
I don't know why. I don't know what it was. I mean, I played a lot of Battlefield 4 as well, and that's kind of where I stopped with Battlefield. I don't know why. I think they had such really good maps where I think that the different levels of gameplay. You had the infantry, sort of soldier on soldier, sort of tanks and sort of LAV sort of vehicles, and then you had like helicopters fighting each other, and then you had jets as well.
Yeah.
And then the destructible environment as well was really cool. And I think it was the right combination of chaos really and unpredictability. And I don't know why they didn't do as well. Maybe it was just not as... The helicopters were never as good, I thought, as in 4. But I do remember just how fun it was flying over this map with one of our other friends, actually, but in an attack helicopter. One person flying it, one person with a gun, and just having just a ridiculous amount of fun. And also Rush.
Yeah, I just remember like just the destructible environments blowing my mind. Just being like, I just killed not an entire team, but I killed like 3 people in this house because I bombed it at the right moment and brought it down. So cool.
So cool. And like tanks driving through buildings and just like
yeah. Oh, awesome.
So good, and it did really well. I mean, I think it's only been replicated well by Squad, this other game. That's got really good levels of tactics. I mean, that's a little bit more hardcore, but it's still good fun. But I think there is a need in the market at the moment for a game for like Battlefield 3, and I think we'll see if they manage to achieve it.
Well, World War 3 was meant to be that, but I don't know where that went.
I don't know. I think again that was suffered with hype, and the budget didn't quite work out as well. I don't think they had the budget for it necessarily. But
yeah, a lot of smaller studios are stepping up to fill these gaps. Some of them much more successfully than others.
Yeah, definitely. I think it will be interesting to see what, as we talked about earlier, like what the big sort of game manufacturers, AAA manufacturers, sort of make in the next few years. If they do start to make good games again. And maybe I'm just being a bit jaded and old, but
I'm excited. It's a new generation consoles. I think I don't know, there's potential. We'll see where it goes, but yeah.
I mean, all games had their issues at the start. I mean, I'm sure Battlefield 3 had so many issues, I think, at the start anyway. But we'll see where it goes.
I think that this, I'll let you do your next game in a sec. I think this generation of consoles really was quite underpowered, honestly, and I think that it did a lot of AAA games stagnated quite a bit because I honestly think it's because the tech wasn't there to really bring it forward. I feel like because games are always made around consoles, and I do feel like the PlayStation 4, Xbox One generation was kind of the same as the generation before it, but everything was prettier and at a high resolution. That was kind of it, really. I didn't think anything else of it.
It had a difficult. Hopefully, this noisy chair that I'm sitting on isn't annoying.
I can't hear it at all.
Good. It's very squeaky. I think that was a stage where PC gaming sort of took off a bit more as well. So I think the consoles slightly suffered from not quite knowing where they were.
Yeah.
But now with PC gaming and being a bit, with graphics cards being expensive.
Not anymore though.
Are they not anymore?
Have you seen the new cards?
No, I haven't. I haven't kept up with it at all.
Quick aside, because I need to fill Tony in with this information. So because I'm buying one of these. So the new cards come out in 2 weeks. They revealed a 3070, a 3080, and a 3090. The 3070 costs £400, and it is more powerful. And there are benchmarks now. It's more powerful than the £1,300 2080 Ti.
No,
so
really?
They've now gone back to being reasonably priced.
Oh my goodness!
And they actually made a joke about it in the presentation where they revealed it. So Pascal, which was the 10 series, they actually said, Pascal owners, now it's time to upgrade. That's what they actually said. So I'm gonna be buying a 3080. I'm really excited.
That sounds fantastic. I'm glad. I mean, if only Intel will do the same with their CPUs now. I mean, that is a huge thing, isn't it? Wow, that's incredible. It's actually insane. The 3080 is actually like completely mental. It's like twice as powerful as a 2080 Ti. It's an absolute beast. It's gonna be really exciting. That's gonna be so good. I'm shocked that that's the case.
Yeah, same.
Because business wise, why would you do that? Why would you not just do?
Well, because I think it's because the consoles are actually going to be really good this gen, and there's no way they're going to be any more than £500. So I reckon the only reason why the last ones are expensive is because why not? But now they know there's going to be competition, so
That's what we said earlier, isn't it? That that was that issue of when we I think when we got into PC gaming, I can't remember how years ago now, but it was worth it. It was worth spending money on these things because you get a lot more for your money than consoles. But then the last couple of years, it's been really difficult to sort of justify. That was with Bitcoin mining as well, so really pushing up the price of graphics cards. You think you have to spend a lot of money on to get a decent PC up and running. It did get more expensive, but that's so good to hear, because usually it was like, oh, the next sort of 60, 70, 80, whatever it was, series of cards each year would be just like 5-10% better, wouldn't they, or something like that. It was
well,
rubbish.
the 20 series was that. The 10 series was really, really good, and then they got crap, and then now instead of seeing 10-15%, you're seeing like 80-90%.
So good.
And and they're twice as good at ray tracing as well, which is going to be so cool when that gets more adopted. That is going to be so cool.
That'd be amazing.
Anyway,
incredible. Yeah.
Give me your next game.
I know you could talk about ages for that, couldn't we?
Yep.
Next game, unsurprisingly, really, is The Witcher 3.
Right.
So
I'm looking at my list, and I cannot believe it, but The Witcher 3 is not actually on here yet. How is that? I was gonna put it on my list, but wow. Yeah, go on. Tell me about The Witcher 3.
Well, I think with all the other games I've said, I think there is you have to take it with a pinch of salt, in that it was when it came out in a certain age for me. It came out at a certain time before, obvious sort of context of the games around it. But really, I think The Witcher 3 will always go down in history for being remarkably good for its age, or its era. Remarkably good. Again, I think it suffered. I enjoyed the combat, and I think it wasn't not perfect in any way, but it was just so removed from the cookie cutter sort of games that we've had, and it was such an improvement from The Witcher 2 as well, because I played The Witcher 2, and it was good, but it was a very small developer, weird sort of mechanics, open world-ish, but not really very well done. I don't think it was open world actually, but it was. It was just an odd sort of game, really. Fun, good story, but just kind of odd, really. The Witcher 3 just knocked it out of the park. It was such an amazing world. It was such an amazing world.
Yeah.
The amount of time you could just sit on top of the horse and look at like Skellige, the island of Skellige, the sunset and the trees and the music, and it was like so
good.
What do you call it? Like a render sort of demo for it was just gorgeous. And on top of that, you had I was slightly diversion to a lengthy sort of talk about NPCs in video games now. I think for me, The Witcher was the next game where, for a long time, where a created world felt like a world. And we talked about in Oblivion, and where the cities felt real. Now, if we go back to them, they would feel. And even when going back to sort of Skyrim as well, everything feels very small and not very real, because everything feels very placed, and we're just used to it now. We're used to that level of world building. And I think for me, when I went into, I can't remember names of any of the cities. I mean, you played a lot more than I did. But one of the cities, it felt like a bustle and hustle.
Novigrad, probably.
Yeah, I think so.
Novigrad is like the big city, yeah.
Yeah, and I just think, it's still obviously a video game,
It's so amazing though.
It was, and it had really cool levels of, world building, and a bit like sort of Dungeons and Dragons. It was what you imagine like a really well crafted world of Dungeons and Dragons was like, and it didn't feel too much like just a Lord of the Rings clone as well. It was a bit Game of Thronesy because it was very brutal, it was quite a brutal sort of game in the sense that with Skyrim it's just like hack and slash. Oh, the person's dead. They're like a ragdoll figure on the ground, and you could chop off someone's head. There were executions from Skyrim, but The Witcher felt a bit more gritty, definitely. And again, that same thing we talked about earlier. I mean, I suppose this is kind of a theme of games that I like, is that you can really go down different avenues. I mean, you are Geralt of Rivia, the Witcher. You are a set character. And in that ways, it makes it more impressive, really, that a game like that, even though you were one character with no options of changing your hair color or who you were, your race, your whatever, you felt really unique. Your gameplay felt unique. Yeah, and with incredible.
With The Witcher, I liked how they basically hid a class system in there with the Witcher armor, and how you could actually, the different Witcher armors that you could level up and get were, they kind of it's like they actually put you into more of a class if you wanted to do that, but the way it was done was really cool. And when you find another piece of Witcher gear, it was really special, like, and really hard, really hard to craft that final master level armor. Like that's a tough.
I mean, you're far more qualified to talk about The Witcher 3 than me. Again, another game I didn't finish, and I still haven't finished it.
Honestly, finish that game.
Yeah.
Get the expansions. Because
I got the expansions, but I just wasn't why I'm desperate to play. Yeah, I just haven't played them.
But both of the expansions are fantastic. They're both amazing.
Yeah, and they look awesome. Again, actually, I mean, I read the books of The Witcher as well, and I thought they were a really cool world. Just a really well thought out world. I will. It's a game I will come back to, undoubtedly come back to. I remember it was a bit difficult to run on a couple of the graphics cards I had, but I looked forward to being playing it at full settings.
Yeah.
So it was good.
See, there's a few games, and me being having the honor of being the host of this podcast, I have the power to change this list. Because in this list is mine and Jack's games as well, and because I control the list, I can control what games I put in, and I'm so tempted because Witcher 3 deserves so much praise, but I didn't put it in mine, and it's so hard, isn't it, doing a top 5?
Yeah. I'd be so interested to hear what your top 5 is.
Well, what's your number 1? Let's hear it.
Well, this was hard, but I'm actually really satisfied. I actually came to this conclusion really quickly, and it's a bit cheaty because I'll jump back between the first game and the second game, but I'm just going to go with the first game because it's the first one I played and I thought it was fantastic. Metro 2033.
Whoa, cool.
I know, it's a bit random. Again, far from a perfect game, but it was. I think it was a really, really well-built game. In the sense of just the environment. I don't, unless I can think of one, I don't think I've had, maybe the forest actually, but I don't think I've had such good atmosphere in a game ever, really. And it's purely subjective.
Sorry, carry on.
You are in the, it's Russian as well, written by Russian, made by Russians, I think. So a Russian studio. So it's the flavor feels different from your like Ubisoft, because you could know a Ubisoft game without knowing it's a Ubisoft game. Everything is just so, I feel immersed. I think that's the most immersed I've felt in a game, really, is in the Metro series. And again, I'm slightly blurring the lines between the first game 2033 and Metro Last Light, which is the second one. But it's got everything I like in it. It's got history in it. It's sort of alternate history, but World War II blending into the Cold War. So it's really sort of cool history. It's entirely based in tunnels, and and you've got these janky sort of homemade economy sort of. I think it's what I wanted Fallout to be, and that's why I was always slightly disappointed with Fallout, was that Fallout never felt as, I guess, immersive or
authentic.
Yeah, that's the good word. Yeah, authentic. Absolutely right.
Yeah,
and I could really see, why this underground Russian subway economy and manufacturing systems and way of life existed. There was nothing unbelievable about it, really.
Do you remember we went to Comic-Con?
Yeah.
And we received it was either that game or Last Light.
Yeah.
It was just a pack-in.
Yeah.
And I remember playing that. I'd never heard of it at that point.
No, same.
And I was expecting nothing. Absolutely mind blown by how good it was.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. It was going through these tunnels and with with different weapons that you found and just sneaking around, and then it's so atmospheric.
Yeah.
I'm just using the same words over and over again now, but I loved it. Absolutely loved it. And the monsters were very cool, and lots of different types of threat as well. You had sort of the more supernatural threat. You had the sort of humans versus humans, sort of territorial war threat. You had the sort of actual sort of irradiated monsters threat. Just a really, really immersive, gritty world. And I will go back to that game. I have done, and I will go back to the game again at some point. Because I love it. Absolutely love it.
Good pick.
Yeah, so that's kind of it, really.
So, okay, so I'm going to read you this list, and at some point, because there's only been 2 episodes of Hitbox, so I'm not concerned yet. But at some point, I am going to be concerned because so far, every single person has chosen a completely unique game. There's no overlap at all.
Really?
Which is really cool, actually. I was kind of expecting, honestly, I thought everyone would say The Witcher. I even surprised myself that I didn't put The Witcher on there. So I'm going to start from the bottom and go up. Yeah. And we're going to read the current Hitbox top 10 games of all time. So at the moment, there is no top 10. There's a top 6. And they're all, there's a whole, so there's only 6. It's a top 6, and there are 22 games on this list.
Wow.
Okay, so joint 6th is Evolve and
Really?
Marvel vs. Capcom 3.
Oh, okay.
Because they've both got 0 points. In 5th place with 1 point each, we have Undertale, Street Fighter 4, Minecraft, and PUBG.
Yeah, I nearly did Minecraft as well, actually, but I thought that's going to be very common as well. So
it's frustrating though, isn't it? Because Minecraft really deserves to be way higher than that because it's really good.
Yeah. I also, I'm cutting in again now, but I feel there's definitely games that sort of don't deserve, that they're fantastic, but they don't deserve to be recommended. Like Gary's mod, for example, is entirely user created. There's nothing about that game that is the developers intended, really, or
I would never. Gmod, in terms of my experience of games, would be right at the top. But you just can't put it on there, can you?
Sorry about that. I think my Discord just restarted for some reason. I don't know what that was, but
that's all right. All right, back now. Yeah, right. Carry on. Where were we?
What were we talking about?
Go on. Can we remember the last 30 seconds?
Gmod. That was it. We're talking about Gmod.
Two gentlemen in their prime.
We're in our early 20s. It's only going to get worse from here.
Uh-oh.
Oh dear. Gmod. We were saying how it's entirely user created and just. It's very strange. It's a very strange mix of the game, and again, entirely boosted by community creations and also YouTube videos.
Yeah.
Like that's all it was. I mean, I discovered it through YouTube pretty much.
Yeah.
So yeah, absolutely bizarre really how it's alive, but even alive now. It would be funny if they released a second version, when the next Source engine comes out,
well,
they'll release.
There's actually, it's like, it seems to be that there is actually going to be a second Gary's mod.
Oh, excellent.
According to Gary himself. So when that will come out, it's anyone's guess. But apparently it's been in development for a good few years now. So
brilliant.
Yeah.
Brilliant. I would love that. I mean, again, it needs that library of resources. But I mean, I think all the old classics, such as the classic game modes, Prop Hunt, TTT, all the famous ones will be on there instantly, I'm sure. But just that mess of making a server and adding ludicrous amounts of,
it's never going to be bad.
I was talking to my brother about it the other day. Like, I love the fact that you'll be running around with like a shotgun with this weird like Jimmy Neutron's dad, and I'm hunting down, hunting down Kermit the Frog or Mario or something. It's just
if you want to, if Gmod represents, that's like a good bastion for PC gaming. That's kind of like this is kind of what you can do. Like that's kind of like the peak of this is how ridiculous you can get with mods.
Yeah.
I mean,
you look. Yeah.
Sorry.
You look. Yeah. Go on.
No, go on. Carry on. Sorry.
Just going to say, like the Halo community was amazing with the Forge World sort of editor that they create. They had amazing games on that, but they always, and like the GTA, and that is bizarre as well to me. GTA 5 level creator, like you had to learn if you wanted to make decent levels, you had to learn weird placement tricks. To get everything to work. For like 3 years, you had to place ramps in weird things and ways before they did more sort of. And you think that's a console sort of ized version of PC gaming.
Yeah.
And the same with the Halo thing. That is console based. You have to work. You're working around the system rather than with it. With Gary's mod, yes, it's it's a cranky piece of shit really, but it's so creative. It is the ultimate expression of gaming, so creativity, and
definitely.
Yeah, I'll always laugh at the memories of that. Always laugh at the memories of that. And we had certainly a lot of fun in it. So,
I lost my place. In fourth place on this list, we have Civilization 5,
that's good.
Towerfall, Spyro the Dragon, and Lost Planet 2.
Interesting. Who else put Lost Planet 2?
You. That is yours. That is yours.
I see. Okay.
This is a joint. These all have 2 points.
That makes sense now. I should have got this from the start. That this is there's only been two people doing it.
Yeah. Just to so basically, if it's your best game, it gets 5 points, and worst 1.
And so it's just 2 from 2 people. It's not included yours and Jack's, is it?
It's including me and Jack's.
Oh, it's included.
Yeah,
okay, cool.
Because we thought we'd add ours in to start it off to a reasonable list.
Yeah, of course.
The next in third place we have Super Smash Bros. Ultimate, Halo Reach, Skyrim, and Battlefield 3. In second place we have Persona 4, Zelda Breath of the Wild, Little Big Planet 2, and The Witcher 3. And then the Hitbox number 1 games of all time. It's so funny. It's such a funny list. Pokemon Heart Gold, Mass Effect 2.
See, I was going to say Mass Effect 2 at one
Were
point
you?
But only a little bit. But, yeah.
The Last of Us, and of course Metro 2033.
The Last of Us as well. Wow. So what was Jack's favourite game?
Jack's favourite game was The Last of Us.
Yeah.
And then,
very good.
So for me, I mean, top game is ridiculous because, frankly, I could put Zelda in there. I could put Witcher in there. I'm still umming and ahhing about Pokemon. I just felt like, I don't know. I had so many great memories, and I'm like, I always think back to Pokemon. Does it deserve to be number one? Almost certainly not. But you know,
yeah, it's so hard, isn't it? I think interesting again what you mentioned, Little Big Planets. To whoever put that is an excellent game. But again, because I didn't have a PS3, I had no contact with that, which is really disappointing in a way, because it was, again, so much creativity. I mean, it kind of is a bit Gmod-y, really, isn't it, in that sense?
Yeah, it was surprisingly Gmod-y, considering it's obviously on a console. You actually did have quite a lot of freedom, and it wasn't that hard to use either. No, crazy, really, isn't it? Absolutely crazy. So this, I think, it's time we wrap this podcast up.
Probably right.
And so this has been episode 2 of Hitbox. Have you enjoyed your time?
I've thoroughly enjoyed it. I hope this is one of many, and I'm sure the top 10 list will forever be as muddled and as varied as possible. But I think that's the way you want it, really, isn't it?
I want there to be at least some repeats, so I don't have to read this gargantuan list.
Oh, it is huge, isn't it? Yeah, half of the episode will be you reading the list.
Yeah.
But, God. But it's nice though. I mean, it shows how much variety there is, and I think it will be interesting to look back on it and think, this is such an important amount, because we spend so much time playing video games. I think for me, video games are more important than film, really, in terms of the content that I consume.
Definitely.
So it's a huge part of your life that you relax to. It's a huge amount.
I think this list just shows you that making a top 10 as a single individual, or even with a couple of people, it's not doable. You look at this list of games and it's like, so the fact that nobody, I know there's only 4 of us, but I'm surprised that there hasn't been at least one game that's been brought up twice. It shows you just the variety.
It's crazy, isn't it? Really crazy. Right.
Anyway, thank you very much for joining me, and listeners, if you made it all the way to the end of this episode, then legally speaking, you have to subscribe. I'd be surprised if they don't. And that's impressive. I mean, to be fair, if you've watched this whole episode, like you probably like this. That's quite impressive. It's like an hour and 40 minutes worth of video at this point. And please leave a like and check out some of our other videos. If you didn't like Jonah, we had another guy on a couple of weeks ago called Niall, much nicer. You'll prefer him, okay? So
definitely. And if you have any sponsorship deals, write in as well.
Oh, don't worry. In the post, I'll every 5 minutes there'll be an advert. If you got to the end of this video, then you are really committed.
Surely you can get a Squarespace advert in there somewhere.
Oh, I wish. Goodbye, everybody.
Goodbye.